You've probably had this moment before. Someone says something small, almost harmless, and suddenly you're angry for the rest of the day. Or you replay a conversation in your head at night, thinking of what you should have said. Or you scroll past someone your age who seems more successful, more confident, more ahead, and you feel something tighten in your chest that you don't want to admit is envy. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, but it does. And the scary part is you don't fully know why. This is the uncomfortable truth most people never confront. Your life isn't shaped by logic as much as it's shaped by emotions you don't recognize, patterns you didn't choose, and instincts that evolved long before modern society existed. You think you're making independent decisions, but most of the time you're reacting. Reacting to insecurity, reacting to fear, reacting to ego. And if you don't understand these forces, they don't disappear. They quietly run your life. The laws of human nature isn't here to make you feel better about yourself. It's here to show you why you don't always act like the person you think you are. Why smart people make stupid mistakes. Why confident people secretly crave validation. Why relationships fall apart for reasons no one wants to say out loud. This book doesn't sugarcoat human behavior, it exposes it, including yours. What makes this dangerous in a good way is how early this knowledge hits if you're young. Between 15 and 30, you're forming habits, identity, confidence, and emotional reflexes that will either work for you or against you for decades. Most people don't realize this until their patterns are already locked in. By then, change feels painful, but awareness now, that's leverage. This story is about learning how to see clearly in a world where most people are blind to themselves. It's about understanding human nature not to manipulate, but to stop being manipulated. Because the moment you understand what drives people, you stop taking everything personally. You stop reacting blindly. And for the first time, you're not just living, you're choosing. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Chapter 1: The Law of Irrationality. You like to believe you're a logical person. Most people do. You think things through, weigh options, make decisions that make sense. But think about the last time you got into an argument, or the last time you made a decision late at night that you regretted in the morning, or the last time you doubled down on a bad choice just because admitting you were wrong felt worse than the consequences. That wasn't logic. That was emotion wearing logic as a disguise. Here's the reality no one teaches you early enough. Humans don't think first, we feel first. Emotion hits instantly. Logic arrives later, usually to justify whatever we already decided. This is why smart people fall for obvious traps, why talented people sabotage opportunities, and why calm plans collapse the moment ego or fear gets involved. When emotions are high, rationality doesn't disappear quietly, it gets hijacked. The most dangerous part isn't that emotions influence you. It's that you're usually unaware when it's happening. In those moments, you don't feel emotional, you feel right. Anger feels justified. Jealousy feels logical. Fear feels like caution. And because it all feels reasonable, you act without hesitation. That's how people send texts they can't take back, burn bridges they later miss, and make decisions that cost them years. If you're young, this law matters even more. Your emotions are intense, your identity is still forming, and every reaction feels personal. A small insult feels like an attack. A failure feels like a verdict on who you are. Social media doesn't help. It keeps you in a constant state of comparison and emotional stimulation. You're not weak for feeling this way. You're human. But if you don't learn to step back, these emotional surges will quietly shape your future. The key isn't to kill emotion. That's impossible. The key is distance. The moment you pause before responding, before deciding, before reacting, you break the spell. Time creates space. Space creates clarity, and clarity restores control. People who master this don't look dramatic or loud. They look calm, and calm in a reactive world is power. Here's the challenge this law leaves you with. The next time you feel the urge to react immediately, don't trust the feeling just because it's strong. Strong emotions aren't signals of truth, they're signals of influence. Learn to observe yourself in those moments. Because the person who can stay aware while everyone else is being ruled by emotion will always be one step ahead. Chapter 2: The Law of Narcissism. Take a moment and think about how often your mood changes based on how others treat you. A compliment lifts you higher than it should. A criticism sticks longer than it deserves. Being ignored feels heavier than being rejected. That's not weakness, that's narcissism. And before that word triggers defensiveness, understand this. Narcissism isn't rare and it isn't always toxic. It's human. Every person carries a mental image of themselves and they spend their lives protecting it. At its core, narcissism is the need to feel seen, valued, and significant. Healthy narcissism gives you confidence, ambition, and self-belief. But when that self-image becomes fragile, narcissism turns dangerous. You start needing constant validation. You take everything personally. Disagreement feels like disrespect. And slowly, without realizing it, your focus shifts away from growth and toward defending your ego. You'll meet people who seem confident but collapse under criticism. People who dominate conversations, make everything about themselves, and drain the energy out of the room. These are not strong individuals, they're insecure ones. Their confidence depends on attention. Take that away and they feel invisible. That's why they manipulate, guilt, or provoke. Not because they're evil, but because they're empty. The mistake most young people make is trying to earn approval from these personalities. You think if you explain yourself better, prove your value, or stay loyal long enough, they'll finally respect you. They won't. Deep narcissists don't form relationships. They collect mirrors, and no amount of empathy can fill a void they refuse to face. The real work of this law turns inward. The moment you stop obsessing over how you're perceived and start grounding your identity in who you're becoming, your power shifts. You don't need to announce yourself. You don't need to dominate. You don't need constant reassurance. Quiet self-belief outlasts loud insecurity every time. Here's the uncomfortable question this law leaves you with. How much of what you do is driven by growth, and how much is driven by the need to be noticed? The more honest you are with that answer, the less control narcissism has over you, and the freer you become. Chapter 3: The Law of Role-Playing. Pay attention to how different you become depending on where you are and who you're with. The way you talk around friends isn't the way you talk around family. The version of you at school or work isn't the same version online. None of this means you're fake. It means you're human. From the moment you were young, you learned that certain behaviors get rewarded and others get punished. Over time, you didn't just learn how to act, you learned who to be. The problem begins when the role you play starts to feel safer than the person you actually are. You laugh at things you don't find funny. You agree when you don't believe it. You hold back opinions, creativity, or ambition because standing out feels risky. Slowly, the mask stops being a tool and starts becoming your identity. And the longer you wear it, the harder it is to remember what's underneath. In the age of social media, this law becomes even more dangerous. You're not just performing for people in the room, you're performing for an invisible audience. Likes become approval. Silence feels like rejection. You curate a version of yourself that looks confident, happy, and successful, while privately feeling unsure and behind. The role gets applause, but the real you stays unseen. This doesn't mean you should tear off every mask and rebel against society. That's not wisdom, that's impulse. Power comes from conscious role-playing. When you know you're wearing a mask, you control it. You can adapt to situations without losing your values. You can fit in without disappearing. Awareness turns performance into strategy instead of self-betrayal. Here's the test this law leaves you with. When no one is watching, who are you becoming? Strip away the expectations, the validation, the audience. The more your public roles align with that private answer, the less exhausted you'll feel, and the more real your life becomes. Chapter 4: The Law of Envy. There's an emotion most people deny having, even to themselves. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It hides behind jokes, sarcasm, and honest opinions. It shows up when someone your age wins, succeeds, or gets noticed, and instead of feeling inspired, you feel irritated. That emotion is envy, and pretending you're above it only gives it more power over you. Envy isn't about wanting what someone else has. It's about what their success makes you feel about yourself. The closer someone is to you, same age, same background, same goals, the stronger the reaction. A stranger's success feels distant. A friend's success feels personal. That's why envy often shows up where you least expect it, among peers, classmates, coworkers, and even friends. Most people don't express envy directly. They minimize achievements. They question motives. They offer subtle discouragement disguised as concern. And if you're unaware of this dynamic, you might internalize their doubt, wondering if you're actually doing something wrong. You're not. You're just standing too close to someone else's insecurity. This law doesn't mean you should become paranoid or distrust everyone. It means you should learn emotional intelligence. Be humble with your wins. Don't overshare progress with people who haven't earned access to it. And understand that not everyone cheering for you wants you to go further than they have. That's not cruelty, it's human nature. The deeper lesson is internal. Every time you feel envy, treat it as a signal, not a shameful secret. It points directly to something you care about. Instead of resenting others, study them. Let envy teach you what you want to become. Because when envy turns into admiration, comparison stops poisoning you and starts pushing you forward. Chapter 5. The Law of Self-Sabotage. Some people don't fail because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity. They fail because the moment things start going well, they do something that ruins it. They miss deadlines they know they could meet. They push away people who care about them. They procrastinate until chances disappear. And when it all falls apart, they blame bad luck, never realizing they were the ones pulling the strings the whole time. Self-sabotage doesn't feel like destruction when you're inside it. It feels like hesitation, like overthinking, like waiting for the right moment. But underneath those excuses are deeper forces: fear of responsibility, fear of judgment, fear of outgrowing the identity you're comfortable with. Success changes how people see you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. For some, that change feels threatening. This law hits hardest when you're young because potential creates pressure. Everyone tells you that you can be something great, and suddenly every choice feels heavy. If you try and fail, it hurts. But if you never fully try, you can always tell yourself you could have. Self-sabotage protects your ego while quietly stealing your future. The mind loves familiarity, even when familiarity is painful. That's why people repeat patterns they claim to hate: bad relationships, chaos, inconsistency. It's not because they're broken. It's because the unknown feels more dangerous than the known. Growth demands discomfort, and the brain resists it by pulling you back into old habits. This law leaves you with a brutal question: what part of your life keeps stalling, and what role are you playing in that? Pay attention to patterns, not excuses. Awareness is the moment self-sabotage loses its grip, because once you see yourself clearly, you can no longer pretend it's someone else holding you back. Conclusion. By now, one thing should be clear. The biggest battles in life don't happen outside of you, they happen within. Irrational emotions, fragile egos, hidden envy, unconscious roles, and self-sabotaging patterns aren't flaws unique to few people. They are universal. The difference is that most people never learn to recognize them. They live their entire lives reacting, defending, comparing, and repeating the same mistakes, wondering why nothing really changes. The laws of human nature doesn't give you motivation, it gives you vision. And vision is more dangerous than motivation because once you see your patterns, you can't unsee them. You start catching yourself before reacting. You notice when your ego is talking. You sense tension in relationships before they break. You realize that many of the obstacles you blamed on others were actually coming from inside you. That awareness doesn't make life easier, but it makes it honest. If you're between 15 and 30, this knowledge is leverage. Most people don't gain this level of self-awareness until failure forces it on them. By then, habits are deeply rooted and change feels exhausting. But learning it now means you get to choose differently while your identity is still flexible, while your future is still open. That's an advantage you don't feel immediately, but you'll see it compound over time. This isn't about becoming cold, manipulative, or detached. It's about becoming conscious. Conscious of your emotions, conscious of your reactions, conscious of the people around you. Because the moment you understand human nature, you stop taking everything personally and start taking responsibility instead. Here's the challenge. For the next week, don't try to change anything. Just observe. Watch how you react when you're criticized. Notice when comparison creeps in. Pay attention to moments when you delay, distract, or pull back. Don't judge it, study it. Awareness is the first real step toward power. If this perspective resonated with you, stay here. Subscribe. Because the goal isn't to escape human nature, it's to master it. And the people who do will always move differently than the ones who don't.